The truck driver sentenced to 110 years in prison.
110 years in prison.
110 years in prison.
He was sentenced to 110 years in prison yesterday.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to today's video. As you can tell by the title, we are going to be talking about the truck driver who was just sentenced to 110 years in prison for vehicular manslaughter charges that occurred when his truck and trailer crashed on an interstate in Colorado. Before we get into my opinions about the case and all of the details of this case, I do want to start this video with saying this is a horrible tragedy, and I can't talk about this case without sending you my deepest condolences. Anytime there's a case like this where there are victims and there is a loss of life, it's just tragic, and I just want to say, before I say anything else, that I'm so sorry for your loss. If you guys are new here, hi, my name is Jess. I'm a person in long-term recovery who has served time in prison. I am also somebody that is in a transportation family. So we're gonna get into it. If you wanna follow me on any other social media platform, TikTok, Instagram, Patreon, it's $2. It's only ever gonna be $2. All of that is linked down below, as well as my vlog channel. I am also a partner with Groups Recover Together. They are both online and in-person treatment program that strongly leans on harm reduction. They're 420 friendly, and they are about to be in 8 more states. So definitely go check out that link in the description box to see if they are near you. Probably the most chipper part of this video. That's enough rambling. Let's get into this. Just to give you guys a little bit of a backstory on me before we talk about the case is I worked for a transportation company called Landstar. I essentially was doing sales and coverage where I would find loads for trucks and then I would give the load to the truck. That is where I met my fiance Reese, and he right now runs a transportation company out of Chicago. He's been doing this all his life. He even owned his own trucking company at one point, then the recession happened. But he is from a transportation home. His stepfather is a truck driver and has been for a really long time. So I do have some experience in talking about transportation as well as the risks that go with that. I did just want to say that, we're a truck driver household. And I have served time in prison, so I know a little bit about how the system works from the inside out, and I also know quite a bit about the law. The first thing that I want to bring up here is that Rogel Aguilera Menderos, did I say that right? He was a truck driver and he faced 41 charges, and that is extreme. So the first thing that I want to bring up here is that this happened in 2019, and I also want to show a video here of the prosecution basically saying, yeah, we didn't do an investigation, but we're charging him before any of that is done. So I'm going to show you guys that, and then we're going to talk about it.
There were major disagreements between the prosecution and the defense in the case of the truck driver, Rogel Lazaro Aguilera Medeiros.
The prosecution filed 40 charges against him today. The defense says it's premature because the investigation isn't complete. 9 News reporter Sonia Gutierrez was in court today. So Sonia, why so many charges?
Well, Kim, the First Judicial District Attorney's Office says that the counts reflect the magnitude of the incident, the number of people who were either killed or hurt as a result of the crash. But the defense says we still don't know what caused it, and they have a big problem with that.
Mr. Aguilera was observed by a number of citizens driving recklessly, swerving through various lanes of the road.
It's that behavior District Attorney Pete Weir says caused a 28-vehicle crash that ended with 4 people dead and others injured.
We filed the charges that we feel that the facts support.
The DA filed 40 charges, 36 felonies, 4 counts of vehicular homicide, 6 of first-degree assault, 24 counts of attempted first-degree assault, among others.
The number of counts reflects the magnitude of the incident and the number of people that either were hurt or could have been hurt as a result of his actions.
District Attorney says Aguilera Medeiros faces decades of jail time.
So every accident that results from vehicles is a deadly weapon and a crime of violence and can result in prison. This is overkill.
Robert Corey with the defense says it's premature to charge before the investigation is complete.
To charge him before you even do an investigation is insane. I don't think that's right at all. You shouldn't be charging anyone until you do a full investigation. That's the first thing. Why was he charged immediately? Now, there is video footage of him driving recklessly, and this is at the point where he says his brakes went out and he didn't know what to do, and everyone's like, oh, you should have got off on the off-ramp, but the off-ramp signs were not clear, and it's very hard in a moment where you're freaking out, you're panicked, you don't know what to do, your brakes went out, you don't know how to stop, and you're going over 80 miles an hour on the freaking interstate. Like, you don't know what to do and you're panicking, right? You're scared, adrenaline's through the roof, and you have no idea how you would act in that situation, right? So it's very difficult to judge like, oh, I would have done it this way, I would have got off on the off-ramp. That's what trial does. It's very difficult to say if I am put in that position, how I would respond or what I would do, right? So that is what is so tough about trial. When this trial started, and every trial is like this, they walk you through every single moment where they're like, oh, you didn't get off on the off-ramp, why? That's what you should have done. It's very easy to get up there and say, you should have done all of these things, but until we're actually in that situation, how the fuck do we know how we would respond, right? So he's driving erratically because his brakes went out. That's the first thing. His brakes go out, he crashes into multiple people. There was like an over 20 car pileup. It was terrifying. There's a loss of life. It is a horrible tragedy. But who is responsible? Is the truck driver responsible? Is the truck company responsible? Who is responsible? I read pertaining to this case that this trucking company had multiple safety violations, and like 10 of them were because of brakes. So the fact that this truck driver is being sent to prison for this and no one else is being charged and sent to prison, come on. Why? If you're gonna make an example out of him, what happens to the trucking company? Now bear in mind, we're truck driver household, right? Say for example, the company that Reese worked for had multiple safety violations and one of their trucks had this exact same thing happen. I don't think the truck driver would be at fault here. I think the trucking company that failed to do all of these safety procedures should be held accountable, not the driver. But the way the law works is they just want to hold somebody accountable because we have a massive loss of life. 4 people lost their lives, multiple people were injured. This is a very traumatic thing. The damage done in this accident goes far beyond that day. The loss of life, you can't get that back. People that were injured and hurt, that trauma, that's long lasting. When you're in a car accident to that magnitude, or really any car accident, it's a traumatic experience and it is a very scary event. And every single time you get into a car and you get on the highway after something like this happens, you're gonna be scared because your brain remembers that trauma and your brain is telling you like you need to worry, there's something wrong. You know, like be alert, be alert. That's our anxiety after we've experienced a traumatic event, right? So like this goes far beyond the day that that happened, and my sympathies and my deepest condolences go out to every single person affected by this. But I don't think that the truck driver should be getting 110 years in prison. And if we're going to hold him accountable, how come we're not holding other people accountable? How come we're not holding the trucking company accountable? And I know that they had a civil suit, or there is a lawsuit against them and they're no longer in business. But should the truck driver be the only person going to prison? I don't know. Should he be going to prison for 110 years? No. And the reason why he's going to prison for 110 years is because Colorado has very strict sentencing guidelines and they stacked his mandatory minimums. Now, I've talked on this channel before about stacking mandatory minimum sentencing and how it is so messed up, but I'm gonna recap just again why mandatory minimum sentencing is so wrong and we need to get rid of it. When you have a policy that says these are mandatory minimum sentencing laws and you have to sentence people based on these mandatory minimum sentencing, what you're saying is that judge, in all of his or her experience, has no say-so in this case at all. So the judge in this case can't say, okay, yes, this was awful, he should go serve prison time, I'm going to sentence you to maybe 5 years in prison. The judge has no say-so whatsoever. So that is how we get to 110 years, is because Colorado has very strict sentencing laws and they have mandatory minimums. This is such a flawed way of sentencing people to prison because every single case is different. And why should a policy tell a judge that he or she has absolutely no say-so in the sentencing of someone that they are listening to in this courtroom? How does that make any sense? A judge presiding over any case is seeing all of the facts, they're seeing every single thing, they're listening to testimony, they're seeing evidence, but they are not allowed to look at this case and sentence them the way that they feel is appropriate because of mandatory minimum sentencing laws. It's not okay. It is not okay. Mandatory minimum sentences that can also be stacked are so messed up. So The truck driver was charged with a ton of felonies, right? So when you have all of these felonies and the jury finds that person guilty, they're stacking these mandatory minimum sentences. And that's how we get to 110 years. It adds up so fast. I have met people in prison on vehicular manslaughter charges. Now that typically happens when someone is under the influence, they're drinking or they're on drugs and they get into an accident and there is a fatality. That's typically when I saw that happen. I've never seen an instance where someone's brakes go out, they cause an accident and they were put in prison. I personally have not seen that. So this just really stuck out to me as unusual because I haven't seen it before. So the jury found him guilty on 27 counts, including vehicular manslaughter and vehicular assault. Essentially what they're saying here is that any vehicle is a deadly weapon and he used this vehicle to assault and then kill people. It's basically saying that he intended to cause harm. But how do you prove intent when the truck is completely destroyed and we can't look at the brakes? Well, you look at past history of this trunking company, and the past history clearly says that there have been so many problems with the brakes and these other trucks that were associated with this company. So why don't we believe the truck driver when he says that his brakes went out? And he was driving erratically because his brakes went out. Could he have done things differently? Probably, right? Could he have gotten off on the off-ramp like they said on trial? I mean, yeah, he could have. But how much time do you have to respond when your brakes go out and you're going that fast? How much time do you have to respond? With adrenaline and human emotion and you don't know what to do and you're freaking panicking? How would you respond? Immediately after his sentence was announced, people were really upset by this sentencing, and I don't blame them. 110 years seems absolutely crazy when you didn't intend to hurt anybody and it was an accident. I understand that this is so hard, right? Because we have a loss of life and we have 4 victims that are never going to get another chance at life. So when people hear that, they think, well, why should he get another chance at life? Because these people are gone. But it was an accident. Did he intend to hurt these people? I don't think so. And we do have other people that were seriously injured in this. Even first responders deal with PTSD when they're seeing, injuries and death and chaos of this scene. It was a very dramatic, very awful, terrifying scene that looked like it was something out of a movie. That's how scary this was. So anyone that saw that, was witness to that, experienced that, was in the crash, first responders, there are lifelong issues that come with experiencing something like that. So I get it, but 110 years? So as soon as this was announced, people were mad and they started a petition on change.org that right now when I'm filming this video has over 4 million signatures to look at this case and re-sentence him. But this is really tough because of the mandatory minimum sentencing. I did also read that he was offered some kind of a plea agreement that he declined because he doesn't feel as though he's guilty. He felt as though this was not my fault. This was an accident. I didn't mean to hurt anybody. And while I completely understand that line of thinking, there's so many flaws in our criminal justice system. The logic with plea agreements in America is if you don't sign a guilty plea and do a little bit of time, no matter if you're innocent or not, if you don't take this plea and you go to trial, you're never gonna see the light of day again. Or you're gonna do 20 years, you're gonna lose. That's the mentality. Our system here in America clearly intimidates people into signing plea agreements that they don't even agree with. And it is estimated that about 10,000 people per year are wrongfully convicted of a crime. And that's because everyone is intimidated and pushed into taking plea agreements because of the fear of trial. People are afraid to go to trial and prove that they're innocent because if they lose, they're looking at 10, 20, 110 years. It is scary the way that we sentence people in this country. So as viral as this case has gone, with over 4 million signatures on change.org, do I think that there is going to be a change to his sentence? I hope so. I hope so. We all have to stick together if we want to see change, right? In every single case. Something I also thought was super interesting here is that when that sentence was announced, truck drivers did not want to deliver loads in Colorado. They were protesting. Now, you want to talk about a powerful protest? Truck drivers are the backbone of this country. If truck drivers decide we are not going to deliver loads until he is out, our entire world is gonna be fucked up because every single thing that you buy, our food, everything is delivered on trucks. I'm so grateful that I was able to work in transportation because I have a completely different perspective on it. But everything is delivered on a truck. All our food and beverages, if they're cold, they're delivered on what is called a reefer truck, that is a refrigerated truck. Our lumber and our supplies, that's delivered on flatbed. All of our clothes and everything we buy in a store, that's delivered in a van. And a lot of these things come off of containers that are shipped into our ports. And then who do you think moves those containers? Well, it's either rail or it's a truck driver. That is the backbone of this country. So if truck drivers decided right now, I'm not delivering anything until he gets out of prison, whoo, baby. So when I saw that they were protesting and they were not delivering in Colorado, I just thought to myself, Colorado messed up. You don't want to mess with truck drivers. You do not want to mess with truck drivers. I'm just saying. This has nothing to do with the case, but working in transportation, you're going to have a really good idea of when the economy is going to soar and do well or when it's going to crash, and you know ahead of time. So right now, when I'm filming this video in December of 2021, everyone's talking about inflation and how, you know, the cost of everything is rising and rising. Well, why do you think that is? It's because the cost to deliver these loads is through the roof right now. But people in the transportation world, they knew this inflation was going to happen a year ago. This time last year, we knew it was going to happen because we see it. We get an amazing understanding of America's economy by working in transportation. I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think he should have gone to prison at all? Do you think 110 years is excessive? Do you think that the trucking company should do some time as well, because they also had all of these other cases where brakes in their trucks were not working? I really want to know what you guys think. I think 110 years is egregious. It's awful. At the end of the day, the punishment has to fit the crime. I don't think the punishment fits the crime. I think it's very excessive. But having said that, it is also very heartbreaking that people lost their lives. This is a tragedy. This is a horrific tragedy. And I don't think he intended to hurt anybody. I'm gonna end today's video here. As always, I love you guys. Stay safe, stay in recovery, whatever that looks like to you. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if we have any updates on this case, I'll be more than happy to make another video for you guys. I'll see you in my next one.